Many moons ago, I had started a digital diary series, and it was specifically tied into the context of my move across the country. Now, for those of you who don't know, which is most likely anyone and everyone who's watching this, I moved across the country 2 months ago, and the circumstances were very traumatic, to say the least. And it really ties into the discussion of today, which is the art of rising above. This is a lesson that I have been trying to teach myself time and time again, and this is something that quite literally comes into my life every single day without fail. I don't know what it is about me, but for some specific reason, and maybe it's because something in the universe knows I have the capacity to handle hard things, things come up a lot. And what I mean is that there's a lot of people from my past that I'm constantly learning new information about. And some of it's good, but the majority of it is bad. And I do like to keep it vague because this isn't a series for me to name names or point fingers or go, oh, woe is me. This is more so me getting my thoughts off my chest, because I'm a firm believer that if you feel so strongly about anything under the sun, that is an indication that someone else feels it. Now this is going to be a deep dive. I'm not going to say there's a set schedule to these. I think I'm just going to record when I feel the inclination to do so. Probably a lot in the beginning. Maybe it'll wane off. I do a lot of other socials on the side, but this is more so for me and for anyone that needs it. I feel like lately the sphere of YouTube and the scope of it has been changing, at least on my end. I think a lot of the videos I get are videos that I didn't even know I needed. And for me, that's kind of what I want this to be. You know, I had my digital diary on TikTok, but it didn't seem fulfilling. It almost turned into this like self-help diary, which it's like, that's not what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be this really raw and real experience. And yes, I'm sitting on the floor. My chair broke, but I like it. You got my green chest, my green bed, my green shirt, the little green graphic. Let's delve in. The art of rising above, and how can we connect this to the art of letting go? Now my storage is full. Like, that's crazy. And see, this is something that I'm letting go. Anyway, we really have to set the scene. I was living in New York City, and I'd been there for a couple years. Both sides of my entire family are from there. I'd been coming there my entire life. I was never too fond of it, but I wanted to get really far away from my problems. Like, as far away as possible, while I could still pay in-state tuition. And this pattern of thinking is something that has never left my life. And I'm sure that you guys can relate. I'm sure there have been instances when you were younger where something happened and you reacted a certain way. And that pattern, that habit of thinking follows you. You know, people change, but you are who you are. And so the wise Lana Del Rey once said, no matter where you go, you take yourself, that's not a lie. And it's true. I have a habit, for better or for worse, of running away from things when things get tough. But I wouldn't leave it at just that, because that does have such a negative connotation. It's more so, I feel things so heavily that it becomes detrimental to stay where I am. So I know in order to rise above and move on and eventually let go, I need to physically remove myself from said situation. Hence, me living in Texas. And you might be thinking, Texas? I thought you were in New York City. I was. I was. And there's a lot of nuance to it. From the outside looking in, one could say, oh, you went through a breakup. You were living together. The lease got illegally destroyed. She ran away. And yes, there's a lot of truth to that statement because you know what I just delved into. You are who you are. I will say though, and I don't want to do a lot of editing with these videos, but this is something that I need to pop up. The proof is in the pudding. Insert tweet of before I ever met my ex, of before I ever moved to the city, where I told my friend living in Texas, you know, I want to move there after college. And that is something that does keep me very grounded here because I think it's very easy for even myself to think you packed up your life and you gave up a lot of things because things were too hard. And yes, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't an aspect. But there is a deep part of me that always wanted to be here, and I knew if I stayed, it would have been a disservice. And I think that really transitions into the first act of me rising above. The relationship was bad. Everyone saw it. Everyone knew it. But it's not something you tell your friends. It's not something you say out loud. It's something that the people involved have to realize on their own. And we did. Was the way everything went down pleasant? No. Was it nice? No. But it happened, and I can confidently say that I'm happy it did because 2 months ago I wouldn't have been able to make this video. I wasn't making videos at all. I was in my bed, crying, not functioning. I wasn't a person. And for the first time ever, I feel more myself, which is interesting because it really did feel like all of my life was this thing. You know, I started reading Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, which is so silly because I always had so much to say about her without reading any of her stuff. And I think that's just the human nature. You see something and you see people having reactions and you just want to dogpile. This book is really fucking good, okay? I saw the trailer in theaters the other day, and the narration was something along the lines of, I knew my life before you, and I knew my life during you, but I never thought there would be a life after you. And that's very much what this relationship was. There was a life before her, and there was a life during her. And again, story for another day. But I didn't think there was going to be a life after her. No matter how bad things got, no matter how unhappy both of us were, I couldn't envision, bro, it timed out. Okay, first episode jitters, there are things that I have to tweak. There are things that I have to figure out. But I digress. I didn't think there was going to ever be a life after her. And it has been the biggest whirlwind for so many reasons. And how does this tie into Rising Above? Everything ties into Rising Above. Because when you're rising above something, 9 times out of 10 something has happened to you. So the actions that follow that tie into how you let it go. Which is why I mention all of this. I didn't ever think there was a possibility of her not being in my life. And one day I woke up and there wasn't a possibility, it was the reality. And thank God for that, but in that moment, that's not how it felt. And even sometimes now, you know, I don't miss her, but I do miss the life that we had. And it's very easy to conflate the two. So even to this day, sometimes I still can't believe there's a life after. So I packed up all my stuff and I did the only thing that I thought was plausible. The only thing that made sense in my head, I moved. I moved and I moved and I moved, and we drove for practically 2 days straight, 27 hours, and now I live in Texas. And it's interesting because, as we've established, I've always had an affinity for running, but I was always able to kind of hide it in a sense. Okay, I'm living in Buffalo, and I hate being in Buffalo, and I've always wanted to leave, but I don't want to be dramatic about it. So how do I create a scapegoat? The guise of me going to college. I never wanted to go to college, but I wanted to leave. But with something like this, yes, again, insert tweet, I've always wanted to live here, and I'd like to make that very apparent. But there's so much truth in the fact that something bad happened to me, and I could not deal with it where I was. That is also true. These multiple things can be true at once. They're not mutually exclusive. It's still a lesson I'm trying to teach myself. Whenever I beat myself up about being here, and I'm like, you know what? You ran away, you did this, you did that. And even if I did, so what? So freaking what? It's done. What's done is done. It's like that freaking video from way back when. I want to say like 2012, 13. We're in the Vine era, okay? And there's this girl, and she's always, they're so cringe in the moment, but they're so profound. She has a tube of toothpaste, and she squeezes it out, and she's like, words are like toothpaste. Once they come out, you can't put them back in. And that's kind of how actions are, The things that you do, once they're done, they are done. There's no taking them back. You can move forward, you can rectify them, you can do things to change the trajectory that you set it on, that you set it in motion. You can change, you pull the lever, you change the train track. Like you can edit the result, not the output. You can't change the action. Why did I get into that tangent? I don't know. Basically, I can't change that the breakup happened. I certainly can't change that I moved. Yes, I can move again, and I will. I like being in different places at different periods of my life. But I think the main thing I've been running into is, why do I keep attributing these big decisions to someone else? And even if these decisions were a result of someone else, why does it matter? Why am I so hung up, and why can't I rise above that? I think when people consider the concept and the act of rising above, it's usually something malicious. It's usually something crazy that happened to you, that was done to you, and you're expected to get over it. But this is so applicable to every single thing in your life. Even, maybe I shouldn't say something as simple as moving, because this wasn't a simple process, but this was a good thing that happened. So why do I have to rise above it? Because I'm giving it all of these negative connotations. So I'm not rising above this specific thing, I'm rising above the attachments. The most unflattering freeze frame. But it keeps it interesting. So why do I mention all of this? And why am I so caught up on letting go? Because when something traumatic happens, it's never a one and done. And do I feel a little silly sitting on my floor in my bedroom a couple days before Halloween at like noon talking about, my relationship was so traumatic, my breakup was so traumatic? Yes, I do. But there's truth to it. It was a traumatic experience. I'm not gonna get into every little thing that happened, but Elise was illegally broken. And it really forced me to get it together. Hence, me getting it together and me being here. But it wasn't a one and done. And it never is in life. When something really fucking terrible happens to you, 9 times out of 10, it's not some clean cut. It's jagged. It hurts. The person's sawing back and forth. They rip it out. You still feel it. You're walking away. They stab you in the back. Like, it's very rare that anything in life is just a one-time thing. I have learned so many things, mostly against my will, of the aftermath of everything. And it's been a very painful experience. Again, not gonna delve too deeply because if you did enough digging, if I gave enough information, these are people that you could very easily find. And that's not what this is. That's not what I want. It's more so what I do with what I've done. You know the Noah Centineo quote where everyone makes fun of him, but there is so much truth to it? Like, you have to think about what has been done to you, and it's not about that. You're not your experiences. You are what you do with your experiences. So I'm learning all this fucking terrible shit, man. Like, experiencing the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And I'm thinking to myself, how can I get through this? How can I move on? How can I move forward? Especially, how can I move on when I'm the type of person that I have never been able to let anything go ever? And it ties back into the fact that, you know, I truly try to see the good in people, in every single person that I've ever met. Even if we've had the craziest falling out, which I have with all of the people involved, because it's not just my ex, there's a group. And we had the craziest and also stupidest falling out. Like, if I delved into the reasons, you guys would roll your eyes and be like, there's no way you people are adults. Because it was so fucking dumb. God. But I digress. Like, we had the worst of the worst experiences, and I still find myself thinking about them every day and just wishing them well. And it's such a double-edged sword because it so clearly is to my detriment, you know? Like, why are you so hung up on that? Especially when these people don't care about you, or at least, I shouldn't even say that. You don't know how other people feel. People can tell you how they feel. No one knows how someone feels aside from themselves. But I digress. For better or for worse, every single person I've had some semblance of a relationship with, I do think about them and I do hope they're okay. And that's what makes this so tough. That's why, even though I'm preaching about the art of rising above, would I say I rise above things? No. I would say I jump into the water, I tie a rock to my ankle, and I let myself fucking drown, okay? This series is just as much as for me as it is for anyone that happens to stumble upon it. And I thought to myself, how do I work through this? I work through it by talking about it. I work through it by freaking journaling in every book I can find. I work through it by FaceTiming anyone that'll listen. And when all is said and done, I work through it by sitting on my floor because I don't have a chair, propping up my computer, tilting the screen down, and recording. Again, if I feel so strongly about something, it is the biggest indication that someone out there harbors the same feeling. And this has been the most unimaginable pain I have ever experienced. I cannot fathom how I have gotten through this, but I have. And when I think about pain and letting go, I think about how you being alive is a testament to the fact that things are going to be okay. And it's so cheesy to say, but every single bad day you've ever had, every single time where something terrible has happened and you've sat there and thought, how can I go on? You have, because you're sitting here watching this. I keep saying there's so much truth, but there's so much truth to everything. And that's what this is, you know? The fact that you are waking up, even if you don't do a goddamn thing that day, the fact that you woke up is a testament that you can move on and let things go. And I know I'm gonna get to that place, and I know so much of me getting there is this self-isolation, because you guys, I got like 2 friends here. I don't see them. We're all busy. But that's how I want it. I live alone. I don't see anyone. I journal, I scrapbook, I call people. I rinse, I repeat. I work, and I'm introspective. And sometimes that's how you gotta do it. Sometimes you have to fucking go scorched earth. Sometimes you gotta be selfish. But that's a conversation for another day, because I have a lot of things to say about that. There's a very fine line between putting yourself first and being a fucking asshole. God. But take it from me, as someone who has never been able to let anything go ever, who is actually in the process of letting go, it is possible to rise above. You are not your circumstances. You are not the things that happen to you. You're not even your actions. All of those are extensions of your life. You are you. It just is, and you just are. And because things are so, at their core, simple, truly so is healing. And am I sitting here trying to convince myself that this is the case? Yes, I am. Because I think, at least for me, that's how it starts. You know, you say something long enough, you believe it. Even if you don't think you're in the process of getting better, just tell yourself you are. Because one day you're going to wake up and you're going to look around you and go, I feel pretty okay. And as people, I think that is, honest to God, all that we can do.